Alright, so since Kevin has given us pretty much free range to choose whatever topic we want to talk about, I decided instead of talking about all the legal and messily complicated thoughts and opinions and political issues that he was talking about, we'll talk about sunglasses instead. Hey, that seems like a good idea, right? Because sunglasses make me look really cool and awesome. Yeah, okay, you don't really want to hear me talk about sunglasses, so we'll talk about all that complicated stuff. There are a few issues in politics and in reality and in moral life and choices that I would always have to abstain from voting on because I can't see one argument winning over the other. And this is one of those issues. There's a couple of them. I don't want to talk about those other issues. So let's set a couple of basic constraints that I want to make entirely clear before we continue this discussion about what really results in a discussion of free speech versus hate speech, and we'll talk about that more. So, obviously, physical is out the window. This is all just, like, I could convey all this just sitting in front of a camera, making a video, and sending it to someone. You wouldn't even have to be in the same room to do any of this, what is now classified as bullying. It can be all vocal, it can be all recorded, so, as soon as a single finger gets laid, a punch or anything like that, those are completely different arguments than what I'm going to be talking about, because that's something completely different, okay? So that's pretty much the ground rule. So, bullying exists everywhere. And it doesn't just go away when you leave school, and when you grow up, you get people like the Westboro Baptist Church. And if you don't know about the Westboro Baptist Church, good for you. But basically they're a fairly evil organization, and most people wouldn't disagree that they're an evil organization that go around and picket like soldiers' funerals, and they're extremely anti-gay, and they're just evil people. But the question is, they can do it. What they're doing is completely legal and is, I would say, is definitely protected under free speech. So it's their First Amendment right, and I would agree that it is their First Amendment right. But we have to think, but that then calls in the whole argument of hate and hate crimes. Because if they were then to commit a crime against one of those people, like to punch them, assault them, or hit them over the head with a baseball bat or something, they would have more punishment than if I were to just go and punch one of them, because it would be classified as a hate crime and they would have a greater punishment. And I struggle so much with whether or not that makes sense. Because in both cases, there was only ever one crime committed, because what they're doing right now isn't a crime. But on the other hand, doesn't that signal premeditation? But what if I premeditated attacking them? But that's just because they wouldn't give me all their money for no reason, or that they cut me off on the highway, so I premeditated punching them in the face. That has a lesser degree of punishment than premeditating because you just don't like, their sexual preference. That doesn't make sense either. But it makes, like, it has the feel good, feel right type thing. Like, yeah, they hated them. So they hated them? I have horrible grammar. Anyway, it's extremely, it's something I have a hard time placing my opinions on. And so you travel that back down to, like, the schoolyard, and you have the question of, first off, let me say that I completely understand why schools nowadays have extremely tough bullying laws, because if you hurt someone emotionally enough and they go off and hurt themselves, the school is going to get sued. So I obviously understand those laws and the regulations that the school has put in place, because they need to protect themselves. And ultimately, a school needs to be about learning and trying to promote education than anything else. But if we continue with that train of thought, shouldn't we also be doing emotional training and getting them ready for the real life instead? See, but if we do that, then how do you regulate? Because, purely non-physical bullying can lead to things like suicide and self-harm and all that stuff. So that's not right. You can't let that happen. But on the other hand, you really should be making them emotionally prepared. So you can't not let it happen. So finding the middle ground is extremely difficult in that type of situation, because either you're monitoring them, and if you're monitoring them like you have people monitoring the children's interactions at all times, then if any bullying at all comes into play, then you're going to get parents complaining to the teachers who are watching them, and the reprimand's there. So they kind of are necessitated to have these really strict rules, because if you have a middle ground, then anything that goes wrong on the middle ground is going to be the direct responsibility of the teachers and the schools, and then they're legally liable. So how do you even have the middle ground? Because I think it can't be either of the extremes, because you can't just wrap people in bubbles for the first 18 years of their life and then just let them out into the real world. That doesn't work at all. But conversely, you can't. I don't know if you can allow the mob mentality and just free reign, because you're going to have these suicides and you're going to have these self-harm things, because that does happen. But maybe it's possible to mentally identify the people most vulnerable to that and separate them out. But that sounds wrong in and of itself. So I wish we could talk about sunglasses. I could talk about sunglasses even though I know nothing about them. It'd be so much easier. Oh boy. So, and then we talk about the weight loss thing. I mean, so what we have in reality is, outside of the school system, is pretty much completely unfettered whatever. I can go on the internet and say whatever I want against someone else. I can do it completely anonymously. I could go through Tor, and I could go to the library's internet, and I could do it completely and totally without being able to be tracked. And even if I could be tracked, then it pretty much falls under the First Amendment rights, as long as I don't go off and hurt, whoever I was insulting. But again, then you're going to have this person who was on a game show where the point was to lose a lot of weight, go out and potentially feel worse about themselves, even though now they are, almost unarguably much healthier than they were. And I haven't gone and looked anything up. I only know what DK and Kevin have said about it. But it sounds like this person went from being very overweight and unhealthy to being very healthy, but went so healthy that she lost so much, I don't even know the gender, lost so much weight that people then started criticizing her? I mean, now you're criticizing, maybe she became slightly, underweight, because that is totally an unhealthy thing as well, but I think being slightly underweight is going to be better than being massively overweight. So, I don't know. And now I'm just kind of rambling. But obviously that stuff happens in the real world, so that's why you have to expose children to some of it when they're in schools. But how do you do that without going to the entire other extreme? I mean, and then how do you regulate that in the real world? Because I'm not convinced that, actually continuing on, you have adults who suicide from basically bullying, and you have adults who hurt themselves from basically bullying. So, would it make sense to have, a national, no, we have a national sex offenders list. How about national likely to suicide list? That just sounds creepy and wrong, and I don't think that's the right solution at all, because now you're restricting the victim, not the person who does it. And that's wrong as well. You see, to me, there's no black and white for this issue. It's all shades of gray. And gosh, I don't know. I don't even know how to approach the issue of trying to solve it. It's difficult. And obviously it's difficult. If it weren't difficult, we wouldn't have a problem with it. It's difficult to even know how to think on this matter, because I can't take either of the very popular opinions, which are pretty much at the polls, and that is, you know, the Westboro Baptist, that would be the Westboro Baptist Church has the right, you cannot take away from them to insult and verbally abuse anyone they want at any time for any reason. And on the other hand, I don't believe that we can put them in jail for doing so. I don't believe that it's illegal, but on the other hand, it can hurt people. You see, this is why I said that I would never be able to vote. I would have to abstain on any such measures that would have anything to do with this, because I can't mentally resolve it. Oh boy. Alright, I hope we've taken this in at least somewhat of an interesting direction. I look forward to seeing what Victoria has to say on this matter tomorrow. And I'll see you guys in a week. Have fun with this! Bye!